In Cairns, small business is a big deal. Over half the people that live in Cairns rely on small business for a job. But with power prices the way they are and more costly rule changes coming, our small businesses are going out of business. You've heard about Buy Local. Well, it's time to go one better. The Cairns Chamber of Commerce is asking you to get behind small business in how you vote. We can influence this election by voting for candidates who are working for and not against small business. The local community and businesses need your help. Apart from spending your dollars locally, you can use our photo frame to help spread the word on social media. And if you're a business, get on our website and download a resource pack that says you're small and worth supporting. And while you're there, send a message to the politicians and let them know that you think small business is a big deal. Cheers, Cairns. Who's that dodgy guy? Welcome. On behalf of the Cairns Chamber of Commerce, Advanced Cairns and TT&Q, we welcome you to the 2019 Federal Election Forum. My name is Nick Lucas and I'm the President of the Cairns Chamber of Commerce. Did you guys know that small business is a big deal? Yeah? We want that message to get through to all levels of government. Cairns and the region is made up of more than 50% of businesses are small and medium-sized businesses. It is really important that we put small business up there to get the recognition that it deserves with our politicians. I would like to acknowledge the Gimoy Wallabura Yidinji people who are the traditional custodians of the land. We'd also like to pay their elders past and present and extended that respect to the Indigenous Australians who are present. A little bit of housekeeping today. Today we will conduct a debate. I hope all those candidates have practiced their face after, who saw the debate last night? There was some really good facial expressions, so let's hope they do a better job today up on stage. We will conduct this debate in a respectful manner, and interjections will not be tolerated. For those that participate in this disorderly conduct, you'll be removed from the premises. We think it's very important that we give all candidates a respectful opportunity to put forward their policies, and we will be very strict on that. Today we're going to have a bit of fun. This is actually going to be live streamed. I want to thank NQAV. The debate will be live streamed and you have the opportunity to interact with that. You can connect on the Cairns Chamber of Commerce Facebook, Instagram or LinkedIn account if you want to do that. We'll be taking questions on that as well that we will be giving to our candidates. I'd also like to extend a welcome to our VIP guests here today. We have Wendy Morris, Chair of TT&Q. We have Trent Toomey, Chair of Advanced Cairns. Craig Crawford, MP for Barron River. Ian Roberts, Chairperson for Anglicare North Queensland. We have our Mayor Julie Liu from Douglas Shire Council has come down, thank you. And I'd also like to acknowledge our Management Committee members here today, Ange Collins, Darren Tam, Matthew Tinkner, Chris Piggott and Sally Milcoda. Also like to acknowledge Nicole Tobin Donnelly, LNP Senate ticket for our region. I've got apologies from Mayor Bob Manning as well. And welcome to our election candidates for Leichhardt, who I believe have all been placed on the one table, which I think is fantastic. Just be warned, we have got it bugged and we will use it for or against you later on. I'd like to welcome Warren Entsch, local member for Leichhardt. Chad Anderson, independent candidate. Elida Faith, Labor candidate. Dan McCarthy, Katters Australia Party candidate. Jen Sackley, United Australia Party candidate. And Gary Oliver, a Greens candidate. So welcome and we really look forward to hearing from you shortly. It is my pleasure to acknowledge the following corporate partners who have chosen to invest in the Cairns Chamber of Commerce and by this invest in the Cairns region. Telstra Business Centre Cairns, Win Network, the Cairns Post, Triple M and Hit FM, James Cook University and TAFE Queensland. We'd also like to acknowledge our gold partners. The Cairns Chamber of Commerce has further grown partnerships offerings to reflect the changing needs of the business community, expanding the nature of the Cairns Chamber operations. Introducing our gold partners for 2019, Elite Executive, Gallagher Insurance, Tosco Office National, Total Tools, Adlins Media, Capta Group, CBC Staff Selection, Cairns Regional Council, Encore, Front Row Photo, Qantas and Ignite FNQ. A round of applause for those people that are investing in Cairns business. As is tradition with our monthly luncheons, we'd also like to introduce some new members to the Cairns Chamber of Commerce family. Easy Cool Air, Australian Institute of Company Directors, Hurley Group Proprietary Limited, Front Row Photo, Jump Mania Trampoline Park Cairns, Envirotech Group Proprietary Limited and WorkLink. Welcome to our new members of the Cairns Chamber of Commerce. Okay, we will now have a break for lunch and we will recommence we were originally going to start at 12:30, but we've 12:40, sorry, we've decided there's so much good things that we want to hear from our candidates that we're going to start as soon as possible. So we will have some time to start on lunch and then we will be starting off the forum as soon as possible. So please take 2 minutes during lunch to watch the Win News television sneak peek trailer into this season. Enjoy lunch.
I love it. And it's a yes from me! Yes, 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 4 yeses!
How much would getting one of these lectures be?
I can't put into words what that would mean.
I'm excited to meet all these amazing women. Wow, this is something else.
The 5 of you could chip in, buy a house together, and you'd have more buying power than a married couple times 2.
It's actually not as stupid as it sounds.
This is my dad, Peter Black.
Why don't you bugger off and let my daughter find a real man?
It's getting hot now!
I apologise for Tom. He's not really used to talking to a woman that he didn't have to inflate first.
This is insane.
Case closed.
The excitement is palpable. It's fantastic.
Welcome back. I would like to introduce Daniel Petrie from CCIQ, the Head of Media, who will be today's moderator for today's Q&A and discussion panel. We are very privileged to have CCIQ support today, and thank you for coming up. Daniel, over to you.
Okay, so can we hear me? Hi, everybody. Before I take a seat, so I'll call the candidates up to the stage, and I'll start with the incumbent, Warren Entsch from the LNP. So if we can just, a respectful round of applause for all candidates as they come up. Chad Anderson is standing as an independent for the seat of the Leichhardt. Just to your next. Elida Faith is standing for the Australian Labor Party, and we welcome her here today. Daniel McCarthy, who's standing for the Qatar Australia Party, who's previously stood in 2016, joins us on stage today as well. And for the final two candidates, we've got Jen Sackley from the United Australia Party. And Gary Oliver joins us also on stage, standing for the Greens. So as discussed, we're going to have a conversation. We want to be respectful, of course. People have got varying points of view. In the interest of full transparency, Clive Palmer did not donate our backing board, but that's the first joke out of the way, which is always good for me. But apart from that, this is an opportunity to hear from the candidates. We do have a roving mic around the room, so what we're going to do is, instead of everyone talking and then at the end we'll say, does anyone have any questions? If you do have a question that you must get out, we'd like to splice that in as well. So without further ado, we might as well get things going. Now, Warren, you're currently occupying the crease, so I'll start with your good self. The region stands a great opportunity. The gross regional product's actually almost doubled within 15 years. Some great opportunities ahead for Leichhardt and the region more broadly, but also some challenges. So, in that vein, what do you like to articulate really for the next 3 years?
Well, I think it's all about continuing to build our capacity. Thank you. It's about continuing to build our capacity here. I mean, it's often said, you hear it said that there's a serious concern about our reliance on tourism. But I think that tourism has been an absolute enabler for us, and it has created so many other opportunities in relation to industry. I mean, from our airport, for example, that creates opportunities there. But I mean, from our agricultural sector right through to our manufacturing sector. I mean, people are surprised at the number of blue-collar jobs, manufacturing jobs that we have here in far north Queensland. In fact, we have a greater number at the moment than what they have in Townsville. And people shake their heads and can't believe that, but it's a reality. And so as an enabler, I mean, from their sporting infrastructure, all of these things, while there is a tourism element, I guess that's what started the process, our marine industry here is absolutely fantastic, and it's got a great opportunity of growing to be one of, or the second only to Sydney. So diversification, I mean, what we've seen recently in relation to Mossman Mill showing the world that there is things you can do other than make sugar out of cane. And, with that bio precinct that they are creating there, that's a first for this country. And so, a lot of high tech, our education, we need to continue to grow that. One of my visions, if you like, has been becoming the fourth tropical sports conditioning centre in the world, after Hong Kong, Singapore and Kuala Lumpur. And we are well on our way to doing that with our investment in sporting infrastructure. Again, totally different to tourism, but reliant on the infrastructure and the opportunities in relation to accommodation, connectivity in the airport, our university sector in tropical sports medicine, a whole range, and of course the accommodation, a whole range of things which is actually enabling a new industry. So it's about looking out there at other opportunities that can build on what we have here already. And you're right, we'll continue to multiply.
Okay, so from the Australian Labor Party, Elida, Faith is here. Now, Elida, Warren articulated a whole bunch of initiatives currently going on. Of course, Labor well known for its big focus on skills, training, and health. You're up against Warren. Why stand? And what's your vision for Leichhardt?
That's a really great question, thank you. What's my vision for Leichhardt? I think a lot of us here, especially in this room, would pretty much share the same vision. We want to see our small businesses thrive. We want to see more tourists in our region. We want to make sure that we look after our Great Barrier Reef. Now, talking about education, I am really excited that you brought that up because just this morning, Senator Doug Cameron and myself made two announcements. One was at the TAFE at Menunda and the other was at our Barrier Reef Marine College. And look, we know how important a good education is, and we need to make sure that we properly fund our TAFEs. They are an integral part of our community. And this morning, Senator Doug Cameron and myself announced $860,000 to the Barrier Reef Marine College for a brand new marine engine simulator. And then we went on to TAFE, and we have announced, which is actually in Australia first, $10 million to an Indigenous youth foyer. Now, we have got 15 youth foyers around Australia, but this is actually the very first Indigenous youth foyer, and it's right here in Cairns.
Okay, fantastic. Dan, you've got the mic. So we've got the two major parties here, articulating, quite the vision. You've stood in 2016. You've obviously got extensive history here in the region. I mean, do you have anything to add to that? Would you like to see more to go further on what's been spoken about so far?
Good afternoon, everybody. And yes, I'm certainly very passionate about growing our region. Now, we talk about small business being a big deal. Excuse me. I disagree. Small business is a huge deal. Small business is Australia's biggest employer, but we constantly get used as I'm a self-employed small business owner as well. We get used by governments at state and federal level as a punching bag. Every time they need to top up their coffers, they stick it into small business. Every time they need to create jobs, they build a public service and create more bureaucracy to strangle small business. We obviously need to change the model we have. Small business, when they thrive, employs a lot of people, provides a lot of jobs, expands into a lot of other industries, and we all spend our money in the local community, growing our local economy even further. So I'm certainly a big fan of industry-enabling infrastructure as opposed to social infrastructure. Governments don't have any trouble spending $5 billion to build a tunnel in Brisbane so people can get to work 5 minutes earlier. And here we are in North Queensland, we're flat out getting anything.
Okay, that's a pretty pertinent point. Chad Anderson, you're an independent. I mean, that number there, $5 billion for a tunnel, I mean, what would $5 billion do for the region here?
There's always going to be the common argument that they're getting more down south and that that's a bit of a representation issue. That kind of conversation seems, that theme of they get more than us, or, there's a representation problem between down south and up here, seems to run through as a theme across a lot of issues that we talk about in politics. I come from a teaching background, so I'm a teacher in my normal day job. So everything that comes through on my platform as a political candidate and as a member, if I'm elected, is going to be about growth, because I'm in the teaching business. So I grow. My job is to grow people. So when we talk about economics and economic growth for far north Queensland, I'm more interested in growing the people. I'm happy to entertain conversations about infrastructure and Coranda Range and dredging inlets, but I think we need to make more of an investment in our people. No teacher would argue that our best commodity or our best resource or what is the economy is you people sitting out here in the audience today. You are the economy, and we need to focus our funding efforts and our voice in the House of Reps on attracting specific funding to build you. You are the economy. So outside of the classroom and outside of education, I'd be saying in a small business context, we should be focusing our voice and our strategies or policies, if you like, on making sure we get specific funding to help you in your business. How do we grow your business? And we do that in collaboration with you. But I think it's an education issue, and I'd like to explore that a little bit more later on in depth. Yeah, sure.
All right, Chad, I'm going to ask you to pass the mic down to Gary, and almost a lot of questions there. Now, Gary Oliver, I should say, who is got very deep roots within this region, going back several thousand years. I'd also like to thank you for the entourage you brought out the front today. So, so Chad then was talking about, like how do you generate, businesses, and how do you generate the funding and the demand and all these things? Do you have some rock solid answers on that, some detail? Because like people are very good at identifying problems, but can you give us some practical examples of what works on the ground?
So before I commence, I would like to acknowledge the Yidinji people, who I share a bloodline to as Coogee Allenji from up in the Cape, but I do share that bloodline through grandparents as well. So it's important to me, but it's important to this economy, and it's important to tourism that we do that, and we acknowledge First Nations people as we progress along the way. It's great to hear from a school teacher that you want to grow people, but where do those people go once you've grown them? Because there haven't been the jobs and there haven't been the opportunities. We do have forgotten people all within this region. And we've got to make sure that we provide the opportunity through infrastructure projects that link with our environment as well to provide those opportunities. Where would the money come from? Please, Great Barrier Reef Foundation, give back the $443 million that you got as one contract, and let's invest that in the region. Let's invest that in a way that we can support the environment and support jobs as we progress along the way. It's a big ask. I know it's a big ask, but it's a big ask to do mapping for the future. And I think consecutively there have been governments that have attempted to do that. But the question would be, how can we do that by growing people alone? We have to grow infrastructure and we have to grow economies, and we have to do that through a certain number of areas. The environment has to link with the economy, has to link with people.
Okay, and Jen Sackley at the end for the United Australia Party. So we've heard about money, we've heard about policies, we've heard about growing. I mean, specifically, how does that curtail into your vision for the region?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here before you. And I know that Clive Palmer sends his regards to you all because, like yourselves, business runs through his blood as it does through yours. And so the development of his policies are around making sure that you have the opportunities to grow your business. And so one of his key policies, of course, is always going to be around provisional tax. And I'm sure some of you have seen that, and how you shouldn't have to pay that before you've even earned the money that we're going to evaluate you on. And that you've been robbed long enough by these governments. Another one of his policies is going to be around 20% zonal rebate in taxation. Your business people, the core that you rest your business on is not just yourselves and your families, it's the taxation system that needs to be reformed so that we can grow you for all the things that my colleagues have just announced to you. Education. Where does all the money come from? You are the backbone of this nation. You are the sheep that we used to rest upon, and we need to acknowledge that. And the United Australia Party does. And hence, so our policies are about you, because we know that you generate everything in this economy. We also know that you need to be supported to diversify. We also know that we need to decentralise Australia so that we can support further small business to grow, to bring people further north. Look, you're all here today because you want change. We're here today because we want change. And I encourage you that when you go to the poll at this election, you take one document with you, your power bill, because many of you are suffering now. You cannot meet your overheads. So we can talk about infrastructure. We can talk about education, and I've been through them all. And as a baby, I was raised here in second-hand dealers. So my father was a businessman. My brother still is. My sisters are. I've owned successful businesses and on-sold them. I am as much business blood as you are. So I ask, when you think about all the things that they're suggesting, you acknowledge first that it is you who generate this economy. It is you that we rely on, and we need to acknowledge you with the policies that we develop. Thank you.
Okay, well, I can't ask much more in terms of stump speeches than that, but I will be cracking the whip and reducing answers over the course. Now, do I have anyone in the audience? If you've got a specific question, Nick's got a microphone, so just put your hand up and we'll find someone to have a quick question.
Ross Britton, a question for Warren, but then the other candidates as well. The figure that probably concerns me the most, Warren, is in regards to the disparity on the federal funding between the various cities. I would have thought the smaller a city, the higher the per capita would have to be, because certain things just cost millions, whether you've got 5,000 people or 5 million. Can you explain why there's such a disparity in the funding for our region as opposed to even our southern neighbours, Townsville, or some of the other larger centres, please?
Okay, Warren, can you shed some light on this? Because this is it's sometimes the minutiae and the nuance and the detail sometimes mix. So can you shed some light on the question about whether, I think what Ross is saying is, does this part of the world get a raw deal next to the likes of even the southern neighbours such as Townsville?
Well, look, I would argue that it doesn't. I mean, when there are projects that come up and they're looking for funding, I think we do quite well here. I mean, you've got to also separate the state funding. I mean, if you're talking about state and federal, at the moment we're well and truly being screwed. There's no question about that in relation, and those figures are out there for anybody to see. But from a federal perspective, and going back over a period of time, there's been a very significant, but it's been a build-up of investment. Now, that investment, of course, included the investment in the medical school, the dental school, the veterinary school. All of those were very significant investments at the time, and they've grown significantly. The university sectors have done exceptionally well. We've also done a lot of investment, and I mean, we get criticism in relation to health, but I mean, we've increased that by 90%. Funding to our health here, and of course the recent announcement again growing that to enable the establishment of a university hospital. There's been a lot of money that has been put into the national road network, but understand that the national road network stopped at Ormula Street. And so all the time that it's been continual work that's been going on in that area, but it's relatively short distance and only recently. But you know, we are now in a situation. Many times, in much of this, we are actually held captive by the state in that they still own the road. And so it's their planning and their timelines and et cetera that we've got to try to accelerate the process. And we've recently been successful in doing that in multiple laning from Edmonton to Gordonvale. We've since we've written to and recently got approval from the state government to extend the national highway from Ormula Street through the Smithfield roundabout. Now that took quite a period of time to get that. Now that that's been extended, the money's been now made available for it. There's been funding also that's been done for the Hand High, the Peninsula Development Road, which is multi-million, hundreds and hundreds of $1 million. That continues. There's only about 200k left to go before we get to Weipa, and that funding is being allocated. So, you know, there is a lot of money that is allocated into our region. There is certainly no discrimination from one area or another. It really depends on the applications or the projects that come up. And I think you see this time, for example, there's been very significant funding in that area.
I'll take a comment from Dan McCarthy as well, if I can.
I'd also like to make a comment.
Well, Warren, with no disrespect, mate, you've got a very different idea of what's okay and what the rest of it have got is okay. We have been shortchanged by state and federal governments for the last 20 years in a significant proportion. Even in this latest budget, excuse me, the $100 billion infrastructure investment around the country, on a per capita basis, we should have got 1.2 billion out of that. Excuse me. The best we've come up with in the budget is 700 million. And then when you look at the fine details in the budget, you talk about extending the highway to Smithfield and blaming the state government. Well, our proposal is to take the federal highway right through to Weipa. So that's just one aspect, but you look at the 370 million, that is conditional to the state putting in 80 million, which as far as I'm aware haven't even been asked for it yet. And when you look at the forward estimates, 3 years' time is the first money for that project on the northern side of town, and that's only $20 million. The next year there's $67 million, that's it. I've confirmed this with Treasury, and they have said that the remainder of the money, they're planning on delivering it in years 9 and 10. 10 budgets away, at least 3 elections away. Okay. And when you take the PDR road, if I can, there's $190 million that Warren said is delivered for the PDR, but there's no money in the budget. In 4 years' time, there's $5 million. That is it.
Thank you, Dan. Elida, I think you want to comment, so I'm going to give you the opportunity. Bear in mind time, please.
Time. What is the time just before I start? I'm just curious. Have we all got the same time and we're going to get the timer out? All right. There's so much to say in such little
work
time.
With me. Work with me.
Thank you. Okay, look, I would just like to touch on a couple of things. Look, interesting question, Ross. Great question. You mentioned Townsville and Cairns. Well, one difference there is Townsville's got a Labor sitting federal member of parliament and Cairns does not. When we're talking about roads, we've been waiting, this community has been talking for a long time about easing that congestion on the Captain Cook Highway. And yes, Labor has also promised to match the LNP's commitment to extending that. But let's not forget, in order for that to happen, that is going to be, I think, 5 years down the track. And to see a shovel in the ground, we have to vote for the LNP another 2 times. It shouldn't take an election for us to start making these commitments. We have got $7.2 million that has been cut out of our hospital. $7.2 million. One of our hospital has a large area to cover, and we know that. We have committed to reversing the cuts to our hospital. We've committed $15 million to upgrade our hospital. Look, we just have to look at the NAIF. Not one single cent from that NAIF has been sent in Cairns, yet the NAIF's head office is here right in Cairns. We, Labor, will reform NAIF, and we have earmarked $1 billion for tourism in regional Queensland. The Great Barrier Reef, and Gary touched on that earlier on, nearly a quarter of $1 billion was handed over to a Brisbane organisation in a 30-minute meeting. And Labor will ensure that we take back that money, and we are going to put it in the hands of people who know how to look after and protect our Great Barrier Reef, because we know how important it is for our tourism industry here. Tens of thousands of jobs rely on the Great Barrier Reef. And, you know, schools, we've seen massive cuts as well. Labor is very committed. We've seen 1,000 less apprenticeships here in far north Queensland under this LNP government, and Labor is committed to putting money back into our schools, back into our hospitals. Was that enough time?
That went well. I just want to, I want to give Gary. I'll come to you in the second part. Warren, I wanted to give you an opportunity to reply. Firstly, to Dan's original comment, and also to Elida's, and in the interests of time. As brief as possible, please.
Okay. Well, you're right. There is about $750 million that's been committed in recent time in relation, and the 190th Peninsula Development Road, that is on top of the $230 million that's already being spent. So it's ongoing. These things can't be built overnight. And at the end of the day, there is a state government, and you can't be confused with what is state and what is federal. And this is one of the first things you've got to start to deal if you start to take on this job. The state government, you're talking about state government roads, when you're talking about taking over, compulsorily acquiring the Peninsula Development Road, there's a little thing called a constitution that may cause you a little bit of grief. We are already funding 100% of the actual sealing of the road through the federal government, and the 20% that the states contribute is going to the communities to allow them, if you like, to connect to the spine of the road, which is what we're doing. So, you know, there are things, and yes, these things do take time. When the commitments are made, the money is there. The reason the money is there for the first time since in 13 years, we've actually got a surplus, and that surplus is going to continue. Elida, I don't know how you can get a $7 million cut from the Cairns-based hospital, which is owned and run by the state government, when there's been a 90% increase in funding from the federal government to the state government, and there's been a $600,000 cut by the state government to the Cairns-based hospital. I mean, this is called labour economics, and this is why we end up with pink bats and cash for clunkers and a whole lot of other things.
Elida, I'll promise I'll give you a redirect on that, but I do want to bring in Gary. One very brief comment on Ross's question: Does the Cairns region get screwed? Yes or no?
Ross, yes, and it's because what we need to do is take the politics out of it. It doesn't matter whether we have Labor in Townsville and anyone else up here in Cairns. What we need to be doing is having a look at Infrastructure Australia, their budgets, have a look at the Regional Development Fund. These things are federally run. Have a looking at the redistribution, an equal redistribution of GST, and I know that conversation's been going on in Canberra for a while as well. I've sat through the federal budget this year, and it has been smoke and mirrors. That federal budget hasn't been passed by the Senate. So we're still at a time of place that we haven't really got a federal budget in place.
Okay, Gary. To Chad, I'll just get on to the next area. Constant theme which comes out every election: skills and training. And the thing, Chad, I want to bring you into this because you've got that teaching background. A lot of this investment sounds great. Warren talked about a huge investment already in health, and of course, you know, Elida has also pointed to a number of investments the ALP want to make. Quick question for you: one of the hardest things, and I can tell you as a university teacher, is skills and training and practical skills. How much of an issue is that for the people here in Leichhardt? That is actually getting good skills.
The skills question and topic is a complex one, and I think people need to be very careful with any topic in politics as to where you're getting your information from, who's reporting the data, and what are their interests in sometimes in those conversations. So I've worked in the employment sector and the training sector here in Cairns, as well as being a teacher, and as much as we have a skills shortage, and a lot of business owners would confirm that, we also need to acknowledge that it's not a black and white. People want black and white answers. There's not always black and white answers to these topics. So young people are changing their mind every 5 minutes about what job they want to do. There's a lot of pressure on our school leavers to move into university, and we don't actually have a lot. We have issues with pathways. So, as in, you go to university, and then where does the job? Where's the result? Where do you get placed as a job in Cairns? So, we can talk about skills shortage, but just be a bit cautious that it's a complex factors around that need to be addressed first. And I think more investigation needs to be had here in Cairns into training providers, the TAFE situation. TAFE needs an independent investigation itself before we talk about funding. So,
all right, we'll just
first things first.
Okay, and just quickly, Jen, and just bear in mind, just please keep the answers tighter. like with the skills thing, if I'm a small business, how difficult is it for me to hire somebody at the moment with like a minimum set of skills?
Well, it's very difficult, and there's a number of things that need to be reviewed around this. Let's just quickly, though, reflect back for 1 second, and I promise to be short. We need to change the legislation with the support of the federal government over some areas of states' control around the funding. So we can argue about this all day, but the transparency needs to be clear. 85% of the revenue in this state comes from here, and North Queensland and Western Queensland. And 80% of it goes south. So that's the first thing we need to sort out. The taxation system that Warren is talking about for the state government taking control of things and him having to battle with that is also my suggestion to you that you stop the battle for him and retire him at this election. We need to address and revisit this and review the taxation system and take back control because we can. And then the other thing, let's go back to education and about how to get people into your small business. One of our policies, of course, is around removing the HEX bill for Australian citizens. There shouldn't be one. These are their universities. Your small business degrees, your business degrees, anyone going to university to come through your business or school to get the skills that they need, we need to support. And they are our policies. Thank you.
Okay. Can I just get that mic over to Dan? Thanks. Dan to Warren. Sorry. I'm just... Okay, Elida, I think you want to have a right of reply on the question, why is it so hard about skills and training? Hit me with your...
Actually, what I have is I just want to have a reply to Warren because he's asked a question and we've gone a bit of back and forth on this for a while now. So just two very quick things. The $7.2 million in cuts to hospitals. There was something that was called the Hospital Reforms Agreement that Labor introduced in 2011. In 2013, Mr Abbott told us before the election that there'd be no cuts to hospitals and the Hospital Reforms Agreement would still be kept in place. If that Hospital Reforms Agreement was in place now, our hospital would be $7.2 million better off. A cut is a cut. And let me tell you, I don't know who you're speaking to every day out there, Warren, but our hospital is suffering. It really is, and I can tell you there's not a day that goes by when somebody doesn't tell me a story about our hospital. The other thing very quickly is surplus. Let's be very, very clear. We are not in the black. That surplus is a projection, and it is based on a massive underspend in our NDIS and fairy tale wage growth that the LNP has never been able to achieve. And in order to keep our surplus in the black, we would have to cut $40 billion every single year from services. And I would like to know how much of those cuts would come out of our hospitals and schools.
Just on the hospital, I mean, I know that you're building your platform on this, but let me tell you, I'm getting daily calls from people working in the frontline, people working in the hospital, who are absolutely petrified of speaking out because it's in their agreement that if they speak out, they lose their job or they lose their certification. So, you know, sometimes it's a state-run bureaucracy. The money, 90% is a fact of increases there. The reality is, you know, maybe you need to look at the bureaucracy and how they're treating the frontline workers there, rather than trying to grab at straws. And in relation to the hospital agreement, maybe if the state government sat down with the feds and signed off on that agreement like the other states have, there's a lot more money that would flow. I just on that one, I think that's important to acknowledge that, because it continually goes. With regards to the budget, I mean, yes, we've got history in doing surpluses. Our last surplus was in 2007. The next year with you guys when you came in, with $20 billion in the bank and $40 billion in the future fund, you blew it and you've never had a deficit. This is the first one. Yes, they are projected, but that's how they do the calculations, and they are for the next four. In fact, it's not just one, it's four in a row. So, and that's where the money comes from. We're not hitting up with another $360 billion worth of debt out of the pockets of small business to fund all of these other programs that you're talking about. We're actually taking it from the black.
Okay, I think I might draw a line under health, just in case anyone wanted me to do that, but I think I will. Okay, to the floor, just while we're here. Nick, who have you got there?
Thank you. I'll hand over to Trent, and just a reminder, small business is a big deal.
Thanks for that, Mr. President. Trent Toomey, Chairman of Advance Cairns. My question is to Elida and Entsch regarding defence spending. We've seen both sides of politics use the defence budget as a way to stimulate regional economic development. We saw both sides, the Labor Party and the Liberal Party, try to outbid each other on the Australian Maritime College in Launceston. There's been procurement promises of opening offices in Townsville and Darwin, plus an extra $1 billion worth of shipbuilding for Western Australia. Cairns is home to Queensland's only naval base. What are your two parties going to do to increase defence spending in our city?
Sure, why not? I'd love to go first. Thanks, Trent. That's a great question. And look, Marine Maintenance Precinct, and I know I have been speaking with Advance Cairns, a fair bit in the last 12 months. We certainly know what Advance Cairns' wish list is, I suppose, or what your key priorities are, and they're great. Look, we've got a couple of policies that might fall under the Marine Maintenance Precinct, and obviously I need to take this away and talk to my Shadow Treasurer a little bit more about this, but we have got a $1 billion advanced manufacturing fund, and we are going to, as I said earlier on, reform the NAIF, and that's going to see more money flow through Far North Queensland. To date, we have yet to see any money invested in Queensland, but this is something that we can talk more about offline as well.
Quick comment, Warren.
Okay, well, when you're talking about marine industry, it's something that we're really seeing grow. I mean, we came back from a community here that actually built the first patrol boats, the Fremantle-class patrol boats. We actually got awarded another lot of contracts on the frigates, or portions of the frigates, and that was actually crashed by the state Labor government. And so we lost that opportunity. We did build the hydrographics. However, we found what has happened when we came into government, we actually made a decision to actually start building ships again. And those vessels are in Adelaide and in Perth, and we have a continual build, which has really given a long-term opportunity for the industry. But in building those vessels, there is a great opportunity for sustainment and maintenance, and this is where we miss out on the troughs. We get a nice level, and this is where we're building on. We've got a marine precinct which we fund. We put $24 million into recently. The work that they have done there now has been absolutely amazing. We're increasing our capacity. We're now looking at going to 4,000-tonne lifts that will allow us to do the offshore patrol boats when they're based here and others. We are also looking at other capabilities here which will make us the biggest sustainment and maintenance base outside of Sydney on these. So there's a lot of things happening, and we've also got over $620 million that have been committed for investment into HMAS Cairns for its expansion.
Okay, well that is a great announcement. Now, a quick comment to you, Dan, and then we'll move on.
Obviously, I've spent a lot of time in the marine industry, and I remember at the last election, the Chamber debate luncheon, very similar to this, excuse me, where Warren made the announcement of $24 million for the marine precinct. So it's a 4-year-old announcement and commitment, and that's been spent, and it's a good step in the right direction, but it is absolutely well and truly below what we should have. We were almost virtually promised leading up to the last election that we'd have the Pacific Patrol Boat contract, $600 million, but no, that went to Western Australia to prop up Liberal Party member Julie Bishop, who's just bailed out, and we've also got a $50 billion submarine project that's gone into South Australia to prop up Christopher Pyne, and he's just bailed out as well. So we used to build boats here, and we need to do a hell of a lot more of it.
All right, so bottom line, more boats, less politics for your point of view, yes?
Can I just make mention as well that we talk about the expenditure for defence spending, and I'm a proud member, ex-member of the Australian Army. That's where I went when I left school, and loved the service that I provided to this country. But we have a look at the expenditure of defence, what it's going to cost this region, what it's going to cost this electorate, and it's going to be $27 million a year for the next 50 years, because we're buying submarines, we're buying planes, we're locked into contracts that we can't get out of at the moment, and some of those machineries of war are going to be obsolete by the time that we receive them. So what's the return of that $27 million a year going to be into the Cairns economy? We really have to look at that, because I agree with Warren, in this case, where the Fremantle-class patrol boats were born here because they were designed here, and the first few were built here. Then they were snavelled off elsewhere. So we've got to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Okay, so, right, I'm going to move on again to the next section, but thank you for that. So I want to go to Chad and Jen, so I'll give you the first go at the next section. One of the areas we talk a lot about. Can you hear me? How's that? One of the areas with coming into Cairns today was population growth, getting more people to live here. How do you, for example, do what the Wagners did in Toowoomba in Cairns? Now, in light of that, I'm actually really gearing towards the export question. That to me, and I'm just looking from an outsider looking in, seems to be the opportunity. Now, Jen, I'll start with you. What is the export opportunity for Cairns? Because it's not just tourism anymore. There is certainly an agricultural facet to it.
Absolutely. And I totally agree that we shouldn't put all our eggs in one basket. And I think maybe that's an issue that has been on your table for some time. But I know that many of you have spoken to me about the diversifying of this region and the importance of it. And we have policies around, and I think we remind everybody every day that what grows Australia, what Australia grows Australia. And that export market, I think we've just seen impacted a little bit with the loss of this recent downturn in planes being limited now to coming into Cairns. We need to do that. We need to be able to export and grow more and more of what we've got, and that is about our farmers, that is about agriculture, that is about our tourism market, it is about our, our resources. And I guess export in the broadest sense of the word for us is always going to be around our minerals as well. And we need to not have anything happen to that. I've just been to Claremont and stood up down there with the Galilee Basin, Go Galilee Basin team. And, while we think that that doesn't impact Cairns, that is wrong, because some of those people there were fly-in, fly-out workers. So we need to increase everything that we can. We have so much here in the tablelands and Cairns. Cairns is the tablelands. But for us to increase that export, we should have been dealing with matters like our Coranda Range. We should have had forward planning from our forefathers, which we did have, but we didn't listen to, that current governments have just ignored. And people up there are saying, we can't expand. Jen, we can't get it down here. I've got cattlemen in the Cape who are saying their beasts are losing so many kilojoules every time, calories and kilojoules, so every time they move them. Their weight shifts, they're isolated because of the infrastructure on the roads. So much we can export, and we have to export. And you are at the forefront of it. You can grow your businesses, and we need to give you those opportunities, but you cannot do it. You cannot do it with what you have in government. Right. You need to make that change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Chad, do you have a comment on that? And I'll just ask for brevity, if that's okay. Brevity, just so I've got to keep the answers a bit tighter, that's all.
That might be a bit tricky for me. If I was in the audience right now, that song from the 80s would be playing through my head. You know that one, What About Me? What about me? It isn't fair. I'd be thinking, they're talking a lot, but what's that got to do with me? I live in Edge Hill, Palm Cove, Arakoon, Smithfield, Thursday Island. What's any of this got to do with me at all? It's all very relevant, but to answer the question specifically, I just want to remind you, when you go to the ballot box and you put a little number 1 in the box of the person that you want to vote for as your primary vote, I would be really considering seriously, who does that party really work for? With all due respect, they are lovely parties and have great principles, but they work primarily, in my view, for their donors. So their donors donate big money, and the donors want a return on that investment. So when you think about why isn't my voice being heard, think, hang on a second, why are they in Parliament talking about A, B and C? Well, because they need to action policies to get a return on the investment for the people that have donated large amounts of money to their party. So just put that into the mix before you analyse any question in politics in general or before you go to vote. To answer the question specifically, on the topic of export, I would say tourism, agriculture and education. We need to invest. Our commodity could very well be the education, but you've got to get an independent voice to speak to those needs in Canberra, and I don't believe the parties have an investment in that education, which would be an absolute significant commodity moving forward for all different people to come here for education. It's sitting there waiting for us.
Okay.
You just need to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so when it comes to export, yes, I mean, we've all covered off that we have some great industries here in far north Queensland when it comes to export, and we should be really proud of that, and I know that we are. Two things come in mind for me also when we're talking about export, and that's obviously, and we have made this commitment to upgrading the Captain Cook Highway because our airport is a hub for our export, okay. Secondly, we need to think about the workers that work in these export industries. We know that we do have a lot of seasonal work up here in far north Queensland, and that work is often filled by overseas workers. We want to make sure that if there are any skills shortage areas, that our local workers get the first bite of the cherry. So Labor is going to be developing an independent skills authority, which is going to be able to determine where there are genuine skill shortages. And that is going to ensure that we get our local workers the first bite of the cherry when it comes to jobs for these seasonal farms. We are going to tighten up on 457 visas as well. Look, we understand overseas workers do come here to work, and we do have a lot of them here in far north Queensland, but we believe that they should be treated fairly and have the same rights. Now, let's not forget the LNP's chaos in the migration sector, and let's not forget the backpacker tax. It was 32.5%, then it was 19%, and then it was 15%, and they tore themselves apart while our agriculture businesses absolutely suffered. We came to the table to compromise because we wanted to see our big businesses thrive. So I'm going to keep it nice and short, and usually you're ripping the microphone off our hands, so I'm going to hand it back.
Thank you, Elida. Thank you for your understanding. I appreciate it. Warren, I will ask you just to, obviously comment on a couple of those things, but, like as somebody who specialises in trade and knowing a fair bit about the FTAs, I mean, can you talk about, more specifically, like some of the numbers coming out of the region, specifically with Asian exports, sorry?
What export? I haven't got the volumes going into these countries. However, the free trade agreements that we've negotiated over the last couple of years, including Japan, China, South Korea, Peru, we're doing one with Indonesia. There's a whole heap of those that are facilitating opportunities and opening up for a range. I mean, we've talked about agriculture and the agricultural and horticultural opportunities are there, as are our dairy that we have here. But don't underestimate the amount of fish, live fishing that goes out of our airport at the moment and continues to grow. These are all things that are very, very important in relation to commodity. I mean, we've had sugar here for a long time, but there's a lot of other commodities that do it. But we're also exporting education. We're also exporting IT. There's a whole raft of other things here. It's not just as simple as agriculture, horticulture, and fishing. There's a whole lot of other export opportunities that we are embracing, and I'm amazed when people come to me and show me some of the innovative things that they're actually exporting and the opportunities that are being created through these free trades. We have those opportunities with the airport that we have here, the connectivity, and so I can only see that growing.
I'll come to the airport question in a bit, and then I want to go to Dan just to comment on export. You're heavily involved in the fishing industry. If you can talk a little bit about your experience with respect to the fishing industry and how the opportunity is at the moment, particularly around aquaculture.
Yep. Well, absolutely. We need to expand our agricultural sector, and that's one of the big reasons why I am a big fan of expanding the Kuranda range. It's a safety issue, and it's an access to airport and seaport issue. It's a major infrastructure need that is well lacking, and even in a debate a couple of days ago, Warren and I were having a bit of an exchange, and he openly admitted that it should have been done 10 years ago, and I couldn't agree more, mate. Couldn't agree more. Now, just taking a few notes of Bob Carter here, writing notes on my hand. Somebody asked me about that earlier, so whoever that was, I've just done that just for you. But Chad raised a quick question there before about donations. I remember at the last election, Warren saying he would cross the floor of Parliament and support a Banking Royal Commission. And then once the elections closed, he reneged on that commitment. However, I've done some investigations.
I just don't think we can export corruption. We do a very good job of it domestically.
Well, we have our free trade agreements. We have exported many of our jobs. Many of our jobs. We've exported entire industries, actually, if free trade's working so well.
But it does, like in terms of the certification, in terms of actual volumes, trade to China is $120 billion annually. Queensland's a big part of that. Like, I mean, we have to acknowledge that it doesn't matter what your political stripes are. You know, they are extraordinary figures. Queensland pays for so much of the services we enjoy in this country, and a lot of that is generated in this region. So I'll come back, and I'll have to ask the comment be very tight before we go to a question on the floor. Is the opportunity, especially in the industry you're seeing at the moment, are you seeing more customers flying, coming through from Indonesia, from Japan?
I'm not involved in the commercial fishing sector. I'm in charter fishing. I take people out to see the Great Barrier Reef, diving, fishing, snorkeling, all that kind of thing. But I have had a lot to do with the commercial sector over the years from every different angle, actually. So it's certainly something we need to build and grow, and we certainly have the capacity. Currently on the Great Barrier Reef, figures are a couple of years old, so I'd have to get them, I have to have a closer look at them. But the science says we can export 1,400 kilos of fish from the Great Barrier Reef every year per square kilometre. We're currently exporting 9 kilograms per square kilometre.
So the opportunity.
The resource isn't an issue. That's not the problem.
Okay. We've got, so just on the time, we'll probably start, I'm going to start focusing more on the floor. So Nick, you've got a question here. Yep, Debbie Ann.
Good afternoon. Debbie Ann Bender, the CEO of Cairns Chamber of Commerce. As much as I'm really tempted to touch the migration, what Elida said on migration and decreasing that one, I'm going to let that one go for now. But we're here for a reason, and that's because small business is a big deal, and I would like to know what the candidates up here believe or what they're anticipating to do if they're elected for small business.
Okay, we'll start from Gary. We'll come round. We'll skip me, obviously, and we'll go from there. But again, I just ask that it be 1 minute, please.
It's a strange time that I only get a minute, hey? But for small businesses, it is important. You know, the number of small businesses that are in this region. But there's been something that I hear continuously from Chamber of Commerce that they're against. And that's raising the rate, but raising the awards as well. I've heard from our local member just last week that, you know, consumers need to get more out of their pocket and pay into small business. There's no more in people's pockets. We've got to find a way that consumers can spend $5 a week, 120,000 people, that's $600,000 a week. That's $32 million a year that can be paid into the coffers. I was there at Labor's national conference in Adelaide when they voted down to not increase Newstart. That hasn't had a raise in 24 years, $75 a week for families, $75 a week for individuals. My belief is that $75 will be spent in your local economy. We need to have a look at industries, and we need to have a look at the service sector as well, or where we can add value, and that value can come into the cash registers of local businesses.
Thank you, Gary. Chad, 1 minute. I'm cracking the whip.
Done. Education's going to come through as a theme for me with all my policies, especially when I get in, by the way. So, thank you for that. My vision is about building our entrepreneurial brand. This is a business-related conversation now. So, I know you've heard the word entrepreneur in education bounced around off every single classroom in the country. I can see, but part of my research involves looking at vision for the future for small business here, addressing your issues, but also building businesses here and your business identity. So addressing the issues that you have in small business, but also building the business economy. One of the visions that I have, that I spend a lot of time researching, mostly at night when the kids go to bed, is the Entrepreneurial University. You can Google that if you like, Entrepreneurial University. I'm very, very passionate about the concept. I would like to stand up in Canberra, work with the coalition, Labor or Liberal, and try and fight for specific funding to allocate to the universities here, JCU, CQU, even bring in some more, and actually weave the entrepreneurial education into the staff, employees, curriculum, content, and at the same time involve you in the research to both address the issues in your business and build the business economy here in Cairns. Thank you.
Love it. Elida, you have the floor.
Thank you. All right, 1 minute counting down. Just very quickly, I just want to just address the New Start, Gary. Labor has committed to doing a full review of all Department of Human Services payments. Look, I'm a local mum. I've spent the last 12 years working for Centrelink here in our local call centre, so I know how tough people are doing it. It really has changed my life working in that department. Small business, small businesses, big deal. I agree. I love small businesses. That's where I like to go shopping. What is Labor going to do in regards to small business? Now, Gary bought his prop, so I'm glad I bought my little prop too. There is a fantastic Labor document called Standing Up for Small Business. You can access that online if you choose to. What are we going to do for small businesses? We're going to provide tax relief for small businesses that earn up to $50 million. We have the National Investment Guarantee, which means that you can immediately deduct 20% off eligible machinery or equipment that's worth over $20,000. And we have the local procurement plan. What that means is if there is a government job, the local businesses will get the first bite of the cherry, and that's exactly how it should be.
Love it.
You're going to cut me off. I wasn't finished then, but that's fine.
Okay, Nick, you've got a question on there, which I'll wrap into Debbie Ann's question as well. So
Sure, just before I hand it over, I just want to sort of separate small business from big business. I mean, I know a lot of small businesses are struggling to pay themselves a decent wage, and it's difficult when they're told to pay their employees more and they're not making enough or as much as their employees. So, we want to hear about that. Small business is not big business, and we make the backbone of the economy.
I think I'm just going to give Elida, just because she represents organised labour, the opportunity to respond. Please be quick.
Small business. I tell you what we're not doing is giving the big business a big fat tax handout like the LNP. And look, I understand, but let's just remember that, look, my daughter works for a small business. My partner actually works for a small business and has done for nearly 12 years. I know the importance of small businesses in our community. I presume you're talking about penalty rates, and we know that if you work unsociable hours, you need to be compensated for that. But we also know that more money in the back pocket of a worker means more money is going to be spent in our local businesses.
I couldn't ask for a more succinct answer, so thank you. Nick, did you have one more? And I'm going to wrap it in here, and then let's take two questions, and then I'll bundle them together and use my magic with a mic. Go.
Thank you. Brett Moller, done a bit, lawyer, farmer, and now councillor, and really looking forward to doing this next year, what you're going through here today. But my question is in respect to small business. Love hearing about enabling infrastructure, really important to grow the pie, training and investment in people, health, education. But as small business owners, we know there's two lines. There's a revenue line, there's an expense line. In 2010, our federal national government debt was $150 billion. Today it's $550 billion. We're not allowed to talk about the debt. But as someone in my late 50s now with young children, it's starting to really concern me about how do we pay? How do we pay when we have so many people dependent on a welfare system? Who pays? The people who are working, small business? Are we going to have to raise taxes to pay for all this? Do the candidates believe that we have a debt issue? And it's wonderful to hear about your spending and your big vision, but how would you address our debt? Thank you.
Okay, Jen, I'm going to come to you, and again, just with an issue and an eye on time, how do you address the debt? You've got 1 minute.
Thanks, Brett. That's a great question. Look, one of the key things I'd like to say to you is that, you know, I acknowledge what you're struggling. Absolutely know it. Do you remember when Kevin Rudd gave everybody a $1,000 to go and buy a new TV? And they did. So one of the things that we need to do for small business is we need to generate disposable income, because that's where people go shopping with you. They need to have the income to come to you, because that's what you rely on. Your doors need to be open and they need to be able to come to you with money to spend. So how we're going to do that is around those things, around the provisional taxation. And this is where businesses shouldn't have to pay that until they can generate what it is that they need to earn, and then that can be evaluated. That alone, across the country, will generate $70 billion back into the economy. That's what it does. And if we let that go around a couple of times, it's billions of dollars to come back to you. I think the other thing is that we need to rely on things like going back 60 years ago to the successful 20% zonal taxation rebate. 20% back into somebody's pocket who lives 200 kilometres outside of a capital city is going to generate into their pocket disposable income that comes back around to you. Because at the end of the day, you are the ones that they're saying is carrying this debt. And it is there. And it is real. And good on you, Brett, for raising that. Thank you.
All right. Okay, Dan, specifically, talking about the issuance of Commonwealth government bonds, $500 billion, really been as a result of meeting deficits. We're now forecasting surpluses. Theoretically, the government, no matter who they are, should be able to start paying down or not issuing the same level of debt we've got currently. What's your view on how to reduce Australia's federal government debt burden?
Well, we certainly do have a debt problem. Like any household, if your debt's going up and your income's going down or fluctuating, you've got a problem. Sooner or later, you're going to crash into the wall and it's going to be ugly. However, the best way to reduce debt is to grow the economy. And the best thing we can do for small business is invest in some serious industry-enabling infrastructure, like the Corinda Range, like a proper port dredging program here. So we've got boatloads of money coming into town, people wandering around spending money, people going home talking about our city, rather than swallowing this line they're told about the Great Barrier Reef being dead. That is destroying our economy and it needs to stop. Look what's happened with Cafe just this last week. Who wants to come here? The place is buggered, the reef's dead, you can't swim on the beach because of crocodiles, and yet both the major parties want to squabble over little tins and tacks. We need to get on and build our economy. The other thing we can do is, as Brett alluded to, or somebody else earlier there, about our expenses. Electricity prices and insurance are the biggest impacts on small business and on families. And both of them directly come back to interference and inaction by both the major parties at state and federal level. The state Labor government is profiting $3 billion a year out of your electricity bill in your household and your small business. It's as simple as that.
And just, again, that's a state issue versus, It
is a state issue, just like our hospital. We have 85,000 people. I didn't get a chance to have a go on hospital before, so I can have 30 seconds.
30 seconds you've got.
Yep. Our hospital puts 99,997 people through it in 2017. Townsville Hospital has 85,000 people, so we're putting 15% more people through our hospital on $50 million less. So that goes back directly to, by and large, the state Labor government. So if we want to squabble over whether this 7.2 million really is missing or not, how about we lift the game a bit and grow our hospital to support our region? How about we do that?
Okay, let's, as I said, not going back to health. I know, I promise, Dan. I promise you can have
I've got
15.
one great question over here, Dan, as well.
Okay, Nick, we'll come to you, and then we're getting in the pointy end, okay? I can see a few tight eyes. Okay. Question up.
Can I just, hold on, before, were we not going to reply to Brett's question, all of us? No? Yeah, you're happy? Can I just touch base really quickly? Sorry. Sorry, I thought we were all answering that question, but I just made a couple of really quick notes. Brett, you said, you know, that you've got young children. Who's paying? You know, we're paying for all the people that are, you know, taking advantage and being on the dole. Let's be very clear. I've worked there for 12 years, and not everyone who is on Centrelink payments is a dole bludger. Okay? Let's be very, very, very clear about that, Brett. Okay? People are doing it tough out there, really hard. And this government does not help them at all. Don't get me started on Centrelink. Wage growth. We have got the lowest wage growth ever recorded. Electricity. We've actually got the lowest electricity in Australia because Queenslanders were very clear in the last 2 state elections that they will not let any government sell off their energy assets. And the minute you sell off your energy assets, your electricity does increase. Okay, young children, that's why we must ensure that our schools are properly funded. Every single child in Australia, and Labor believes, regardless of where you live, every child deserves the best education and the best start in life. And we need to bring more tourists back into Cairns. That's why we have got Labor has committed a $250 million regional tourism package. And I know you're trying to get rid of me, so I'm going to hand it on.
Okay, Gary, take the mic. I'll come to you eventually. Sorry, not eventually, but final question. Nick, are you happy for that one there? And I'll give Warren the last. We'll wrap up the questions for you as you're the incumbent, but we'll take this question from the floor.
All right. Are we in? Yep. Thank you. Quick one in regards to migration policies from the major parties mainly. Firstly, in regards to the 457 Elida, that was scrapped last year, so don't worry about looking into that one in the future. International education is Australia's 3rd largest export. Not many people know that, but it is a fact. We've touched on that so far. Cairns is in a great position to open itself up to this as a major export. It is the 3rd largest export, and it's a lot cleaner than coal. My basis is international education is integral and relates definitely into the skilled migration program plan. People coming here to study will do it with a chance to have a pathway to possibly stay, and that's not necessarily a guarantee. So my question is, what are the major parties' plans in regards to skilled migration, allowing for businesses in the region who can't find skilled employees as easily as they would like to? How can they utilise migration to fill those gaps?
Okay, I might paraphrase that question. This is how we'll do it, and we'll make this the last one. Okay, so Gary, I'll get a comment from you on skilled migration. Elida, I'll then come to you because it was addressed to the major parties, so I'll then come to you. And then Warren, we'll finish it off with a response as well as to come back to the original question around the vision for small business and reducing government debt. So you got 1 minute, Gary, then we're on to Elida, and then to Warren. Okay, and I'll ask again, 1 minute. I know I'm being a bit officious, but people's eyelids are at stake here.
Well, I'll just say it simply, is that skilled migration has a place when there isn't the skills to do a job, but we need to invest in people, invest in communities. We at the Greens are saying free education from the beginning to the end, so we can get people skilled to do it. How are we going to pay for this? We're going to tax the big end of town. 1 in 3 big companies do not pay any tax in this country, and we allow companies to register in the Cayman Islands and other places and not pay their workers as they default and go out of business. We're going to be chasing them, and we're going to be doing it with other parties as well. So people will say about the Greens that we will never form government because we're small. We may not, but we will inform government, and we've done it around the Banking Royal Commission, and we've also done it around the Royal Commission into Disabilities as well. Our local member here voted more than 26 times against the Banking Royal Commission, which also subsequently included a look at insurance, and insurance prices are going up within this region, and we know that because of the effects of the weather and other things down south. So when we have a look at it, we want to skill people up. We want skills to happen locally so we can actually fill those jobs and fill those gaps. And 457s and the new range of them have actually worked against us as communities. It's brought in people to do jobs that we've had people here to fill those jobs, and some of those have been basic jobs as well.
Yes, thank you. Okay, good old 457 visas. Look, as I said earlier on, Labor is going to introduce an independent skills authority, and they will identify where there are genuine skilled shortages. We are actually going to tighten up on our 457 visas, and we're going to restrict temporary work visas to genuine skilled shortage jobs. We want to make sure that our locals always get the first bite of the cherry. And we don't mean by, when I say tighten up, you know, we don't mean a tick and flick, oh yes, I advertise for local workers and they advertise down in Brisbane and we're up here in Cairns. We are going to address the genuine skill shortage areas, identify where they are, and make sure that we get that first opportunity, that our local workers get that first bite of the cherry.
Okay, and Warren, you've got the final comment. So you've got two parts, skilled migration, a comment on that, and also your vision for small business and how to reduce the government debt. And the good thing is I'll give you 1 minute and maybe 15 seconds to talk about that.
Well, first of all, let me tell you, the last thing we need is another government bureaucracy to tell us we have a problem in relation to skill sets in this town. What we need in this town is an arrangement like they have in the Northern Territory. It's called a Dharma, and it's something that where we need to. The industry tells us what we need here. Daniel says that we're exporting jobs out of here. One would think that we have a high unemployment rate in this city. We've got one of the lowest unemployment rates we've had in here for decades. We're down below 5%, and our youth unemployment has actually been reduced by half. Now, should we just rest on our laurels? Of course we shouldn't, and this is why we've provided funding for small businesses there to be able to take on unskilled or semi-skilled young people, and at the cost of government over a period of time to build up their skills so they can afford to then employ them full time. This is one of the initiatives that we have. Of course, the asset write-off one is another one for small. You talk about what we do for small business. The instant tax write-off has been a very, very successful program. We've increased it from $10 million because we recognise even at $50 million you're still relatively small business. When we talk about a range of other initiatives that we're doing, the tax reductions, it's for small business as well, ensuring that they get those to give them an opportunity to thrive. Now, in relation to the penalty rates issue, businesses are more than happy to pay the most they can for the workers that they have. They value the skills. It's the workers that make their jobs, their businesses thrive. But you don't send them broke on unrealistic requests in relation to penalty rates, where you can have young people as 18 as part-time job there getting 80 odd bucks a week, an hour to pour coffee. It just doesn't work. It's no good for the youngster, because it means to say they shut the business down, or the owners do it themselves. And so that has a negative impact on the people that are looking for the job, or those that can only do smaller jobs. You've got to take that into consideration. You don't have small businesses thriving by taxing them to death and putting unrealistic requests in relation to how much they are compelled to pay their employees. With regards, yours is a simple question, Brett. You've got to live within your means. It's no different to your household budget. You don't pay your debt with your bloody credit card. You've got to run a strong economy. Now, we paid all of our debts up until 2007. We didn't owe a cracker to the world, and everything was paid for cash. 13 years later, we've now got to a point where we're actually paying off the debt with revenue raised. We're not going back to pay the debt off with a credit card. Now, it's the first time in 13 years that we're actually paying debt off now with money revenue that we're raising, and that will continue. There's no doubt about that, and it'll only continue under a coalition government.
Okay, I might wrap it up there, and just want to thank our candidates for being here today: Warren Entsch, Chad Anderson, Elida Faith, Daniel McCarthy, Jen Sackley, and Gary Oliver. Sorry. So if we can just give our candidates a round of applause. Thank you very much. And thank you to the panel for putting up with my officiousness. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you, everyone, for attending today. Thank you, Daniel Petrie, for coming up from Brisbane. Daniel, did you know what you were going to get into? We've got a lot of passionate politicians up here, and obviously controlling them is a challenge, so thank you, Daniel. Thank you to our partners, CCIQ, for helping to facilitate and put together today. I was very happy to see a very respectful debate amongst the politicians and also our crowd, which is fantastic to see, so thank you. There was a lot more questions that I know people had, and I'm sorry we didn't get to all of you. In my introductions, there was just one missing. We've got Joy Marriott, who's from Lakeland, so thank you for coming down, who's our top Senate ticket for the Katter Party, so thank you. Okay. We have just another thank you to NQAV, who live streamed this event, and we saw a lot of traffic. I was down the back watching, it was quite interesting. A lot of people watching this and interacting, so we're looking forward to seeing some results from that. Again, thank you to our partners at Advance Cairns, TTNQ, CCIQ, and of course the Cairns Chamber of Commerce for putting together today. We thank all the candidates for participating. Small business is a huge deal. I don't mind that, I'll pay that one, but small business is a big deal. This is not the start of a movement for small business. This is not the end, this is the start of a movement for small business. Unfortunately, in times gone past, there's not been a loud enough voice, and together with us working with our partners, with CCIQ and other bodies, we need to keep the noise loud. Small business makes up such a huge percentage of our nation's wealth. We need to have a primary voice in Canberra, in Brisbane, locally. So please, always, when you see small business as a big deal, support it, get behind it, because it's really important for our region especially. We have a couple of business card draws. I'm going to run through them. Who's got the nice little bucket to pull out some business cards? And I'm going to whip through them really quickly because I know we've got a little bit overtime and people are busting to get back to work. Maybe not. So we have a professional photographic session from a lead executive. I'll just ask you to, any applause till the end. And the winner of that is Ange Collins. We have a $1,000 voucher from permanent recruitment services from Procruitment, and the winner is Karina Sampiri. I saw you. Yes, there we go. Who clapped? Okay. We have 2 complimentary painters for a private party valued at $110 from Painting Party. Awesome company. And the winner is Chuck Britton from Aviation Australia. We have a $25 gift voucher provided by Joe's Pizza. All right, I'm going to start kicking out people if they start clapping. I wanted to use the heavies to get rid of noisy people, and we didn't get to do that. We have a digital health check valued at $500 by Adlins, and the winner is Penny Sianger. Forgive me if I pronounce that incorrectly. I'm sure I have, from Accor Hotels. And I didn't really want to use the heavies. I'm very glad there was a very respectful conversation. We have Cairns Harbour and Sunset Cruise and Outlets provided by Gallagher Insurance, and the winner is Dr. Robert Gale from Next Level Sustainability. We have 2 by VIP event cinema double passes provided by Win Network, and we have Dr. Leslie Clark from Pacific Plus Consulting. Saw Leslie, someone I've known for a long time before, and Chris Piggott from Aviation Australia. Gift vouchers for 2 on the all-exclusive day boat reef experience valued at $410 provided by Hot Getaways. And the winner is Nick Lucas. No. I wish, I'd like that one. Eva Grabner from Elite Executive. On Eva. And the final one, we have Cairns Zoom and Wildlife Dome Team Building Prize voucher for 4. This is a unique team building experience, combines wildlife and adventure, build team confidence and camaraderie while overcoming boundaries, while ziplining on high zoom and mid zoom, free falling on a power jump, or experience the Dome Climb, the highest commercial accessible platform in North Queensland. Enjoy fun time while getting up close with wildlife at Cairns Zoom and Wildlife Dome on top of the Reef Hotel Casino, provided by our very good friends Capta Group. Winner is Stephanie Thomas from TAFE Queensland. And sorry, I missed one. There's one more. Spine Life Gala raffle prize. 2 tickets to the Spine Life Gala dinner on the 10th of May. I've really been enjoying watching that build on Lake Street as I go past. Is it one for 2 tickets? Okay. And the winner is V. Maniti. I have a mobile, so I'm not sure if they're all here from that, but congratulations. So all those winners, now you can clap. We're very much almost there, people. I would like to thank Paul from Front Row Photo, always good fun, for making us look good in photos taken at today's luncheon. Please Photoshop my double chins. I'd like to also announce a couple of upcoming events. We've got Queensland Small Business Week. It will be running from the 27th to the 31st of May. We'll be opening Queensland Small Business Week with a breakfast the 27th of May at the Pullman Reef Casino, featuring Australian former competition swimmer Lisa Curry. She's a great speaker. I'm looking forward to that. Throughout the week, there'll be several free workshops covering topics such as recruitment, grant writing, marketing and business innovation. Registrations are now open on the Cairns Chamber of Commerce website. On the 30th, we'll be closing Queensland Business Week with a networking event celebrating small business. Small business is a big deal. Thank you. We're getting better. Celebrating small businesses within our region. We have the upcoming Beck's Business Excellence Awards. Fantastic event. I'm really looking forward to it this year. We're just growing and growing. Cairns Business Excellence Awards brought to you by James Cook University. Gala awards and tickets are now on sale. We had over 300 last year and it was an absolute cracker of a night. Tickets can be booked online through the Business Excellence Awards dedicated page on our website. We must celebrate excellence in our region. This is a great event to do it. That's it. Thank you for coming. Let's hope the next, how many weeks have we got to elections is fun. And good luck to all the candidates. Thank you.